Another one of my somewhat unusual pets. Dubia Roaches. Don't cringe, just give me a minute. Hear me out. Roaches typically get a bad name, mainly for the way they feature on the big screen. A quick scare or infesting disgusting places. On one hand, fair enough, some of the areas they inhabit are run down and quite grim from a human point of view. But that doesn't mean the roaches themselves are. These animals, much like rats, are surprisingly clean. They're typically attracted to food and don't necessarily live in rotten areas. Initially, like many reptile keepers, I set this colony up for the sake of feeding my reptiles. And although they still serve that purpose, bringing nutrition with a diet I'm in complete control of, meaning I know what's been fed and I know they're gut loaded full of nutrition. But what I didn't expect to happen is me growing rather fond of them. They're clean, and as far as I'm aware, they don't bite. Quite frankly, they've done an incredible job of helping me become more comfortable around our insect counterparts. And to be completely honest, I also think they're quite cute. There's plenty of keepers that do the same, but there are some that keep them purely for the sake of being interested in the species. A typical alternative are Madagascan hissing cockroaches. The name makes them sound quite menacing, but for the most part they're very similar to these guys, just slightly larger. You might notice there seems to be two different types. The ones with the wings are the males, the ones without are females. The wings aren't used for flying long distances, but rather for gliding short distances, controlling their descent for a soft landing. Once they've bred, the females carry the eggs for 2 to 4 months, often airing them out to avoid bacteria buildup. Of course, for the sake of avoiding inbreeding, on occasion I add a fresh group to the mix, new genes to mix with the others. This is actually my second colony. The first one I established over the course of a year. Then one fateful day, I had Roscoe out, went indoors for 5 seconds to grab my feeding tongs. Come back to find he'd climbed the shelf, pulled the old tub down and had a feast. The ones he didn't catch ran around the shed and I spent the course of the next few months collecting the ones that popped up. This colony's been growing for the best part of a year now. It's gotten to that point where babies are cropping up out of every corner. These roaches rely on a bacteria colony inside their gut to help the digestive system function normally. For this reason, the babies consume some special excrement the adults drop, known as frass. The frass helps give them the starter colony of bacteria to maintain a healthy start in life. So it's important for roach keepers to keep their enclosures clean, but never 100% purely for the sake of preserving some of this frass. A project I aim to complete by the end of next year. I quite like the idea of building a naturalistic enclosure for these guys. Many keepers just keep them on egg crate and cardboard for the sake of cleaning. But I've had great success using cork bark instead. Does the same job, provides plenty of hidey holes, I can wash it when and if I need to, all the while looking much nicer. Hopefully someday I'll be able to give them a fully bioactive enclosure with other invertebrates and plants. Any excess frass will be broken down and absorbed into the soil just like the reptile enclosures. The only difficulty here is providing a large enough enclosure with a healthy enough plant system to keep up with the bioload a colony of roaches creates. Enjoying humidity around 60% also makes them perfect for this type of environment. As far as their diet goes, they're not overly fussy, accepting most fruits, veg and meats. Cat food provides a brilliant source of protein, occasionally offering some mints too. These have to be offered sparingly though. Dubia roaches convert excess protein into uric acid, which can be harmful to the reptiles they're eventually fed to. But their absolute favourite food is gecko food. They use their feelers to help sense, smell food. The barbs on their legs help grip for climbing. And their flat bodies help them fit into tight spaces, making it more difficult for predators to get hold of them. and accompanied with their ground coloured camouflage, helps them blend in and go unnoticed. Of course, they're very much a safety in numbers animal, often becoming stressed when housed alone. The scattering of a whole colony not only makes it difficult for predators to lock on to one roach to pick off, but also, to an extent, helps encourage survival of the fittest. The strongest, fastest roaches will get away while the slower are left behind. More numbers also means more eyes on the lookout for danger. And like many invertebrates, dubias shed as they grow, leaving behind the almost husks of previous roaches. Although they don't have the toughest armour in the world, a freshly shed dubia is incredibly vulnerable. They stay white for a period of time as the underlying layer now dries and hardens. At this time they're expected to be very recluse, avoiding open areas and being much more cautious than usual. Insect antennae are covered in olfactory receptors. This essentially acts as their sense of smell. They can determine which direction a scent is coming from, and can even detect the humidity of the surrounding area with these highly relied upon appendages. Without them, they'd have a much tougher time finding food. Dubias use their antennae to locate food and examine objects. Notice how, since I'm not moving, instead of running away, curiosity's taken over as the roach taps his antenna on my finger. Residual soap on my hands could also be confusing, a substance he's never come across before that's piqued his interest. Their antennae also allow them to assess the area for food and threats, without actually exposing themselves. These guys don't exactly have a specific odour. From day one of keeping them till now, I've never noticed an odour from the roach tub. And unlike the hissing variety, these guys, dubias, don't make any sounds. All in all, I set these guys up for the sake of cutting costs and feeding a nutritional diet so I know my reptiles are getting the best of the best. And really, I need and want to do this with all the other live food I feed. It's mainly a matter of finding the space to house morio worms, fruit flies, and hundreds of locusts. I get through at least 200 locusts a month, so I'd need a hefty setup to keep a large enough self-populating population. Dubias and other species of roaches do make for incredible pets. There's another species of roach I haven't mentioned that I'm considering keeping at some point, so keep an eye out. Roaches as a whole are an underrated species of animal that clean up a lot of areas without us knowing. And just like ants, they generally only seek shelter and home if their environmental needs are a match. On that topic, I know it's slightly off topic, but it raises the reason I don't agree with poisons. These creatures are only trying to live their lives without harming us, but they also end up as a reliable food source for many others. A poisoned roach could become a bird's dinner, passing on the poison, damaging a further reach of wildlife. It's the same reason I don't agree with rodent or ant poison. There's always another, safer, cleaner, more humane method to be explored. Anyway, they're animals in their own right, with a great deal of fascinating behaviours and physiological features to show us. Maybe I'll make a care guide in the future. Definitely won't be the last time they're seen on this channel.